This afternoon I'm here to dig some more potatoes. Now here in Tasmania, potatoes will keep quite well through the cooler months in the ground. From now, which is the end of May, through until probably mid-August, they don't tend to grow at all. So mid-August here is basically late winter and spring is just beginning to show itself. Now, we've had lots of rain, and that means that I'm digging these potatoes out of mud, which is really no fun. And it means that the potatoes that you're actually getting out are really wet and muddy. Now, there's nothing particularly remarkable about having muddy potatoes, but if you're trying to actually store them inside, they don't really keep very well, and they're not very pleasant to work with either. If you put them into containers when they're wet and muddy, they are going to quite easily rot, or that moisture will actually promote some germination, particularly considering you're going to have warmer temperatures inside than they have in the soil. What I wanted to show you today is how I actually deal with these potatoes after I've dug them out of the ground, so that they are more usable inside and keep better inside. Now that I've got a bucket full of muddy potatoes, and just in time because it's trying to rain again, I can bring them inside the garden shed here and do some sorting. Now, I'm going to sort into 3 categories today. You can sort to 2 or 3 categories depending what you want. I want some of these as seed potatoes. So potatoes of about this size that will make reasonable seed potatoes that are in good condition, I'll put in there. Potatoes that are in good condition that will keep indoors will go this way. Now, I'm inspecting them each fairly carefully for any damage because Samuel was helping me. Now here's one that has some green on it, and so better for a seed potato. So you can go through them reasonably quickly, checking them. Samuel's still not using the ideal tool, you see, using a spade, and so this type of damage. Now those I'm going to put aside, and you'll see what I do with those shortly, because when they have damage they need to be used immediately, within 48 hours, 24 hours really. They will start to rot very, very quickly, especially when they are wet like this. They just won't keep. Now here's one that's got a hole in, so it really needs to go, and it's had some damage as well, needs to go into the damage pile. Now you can take off any super excess mud. Now this is the time of the year, as I say, May, to chase up seed potatoes. If you're wanting to buy them, you'll see them in the shops now. Now here's some that are a little bit small for seed potatoes, so I'm putting those aside with the damages for some immediate eating. And I find that if they're used quickly, like the first meal, then they don't sit around in your box and get left to the bottom of the pile where they're often just forgotten. As I was saying, it's a great time to get your seed potatoes. If you're keeping your own, like I am partially, I have bought some seed of another variety to actually try in the spring. But yeah, put them in a tray, put them somewhere dark where they can grow some shoots, and by springtime, when it's time to plant, they'll have nice shoots and be ready to go in the ground. Okay, I've reached the end. Now what's in the bottom here are small ones that nobody really likes to scrub in the sink, and I'll show you how I deal with those shortly. I'm going to put the broken ones that I found as I went back into that bucket, and we'll put that one aside for the moment. These seed potatoes, look, you can grow potatoes from the absolute tiniest of potatoes, but I've found that you get, that one's a little bit small, throwing back, you get a better crop from a little bit larger potato. This medium size I think is the best. Now of course, if you weren't wanting to keep your seed, these could be eaten perfectly well, and put them in whichever category you choose. This lot I'm going to put into a dark place to dry. Now I'll show you what I am doing there, because that's I think one of the more interesting parts of this. Now I'm hoping you can see this okay, but here in the darkness of the tool shed, which has no windows, I've set up a tray where I can dry these potatoes completely away from the light. I can spread them out. I made this with some shade cloth, but you could use a wire mesh, whatever really suits. It's something that allows the air to flow right around them, and so they can open up and all that soil can dry on them, and they can sit here for a few days, up to, well, they only really need about 3 to 4 days to dry. Depends a bit on the weather, but they'll dry there nicely, and we'll come back in a few days and see what they're like. So with these smaller ones and broken ones, the best thing you can do with them is to wash them straight away, and that way they can be used very quickly and easily in the kitchen. Now the fastest and easiest way I find to wash them is to use the toilet brush method. No, not the one that you actually use to clean the toilet, but a toilet brush in a cordless drill works really well, and with a couple of changes of water you've very quickly got nice clean potatoes that are ready to eat. Well, it's now about 5 days that the potatoes have been in the garden shed here in the dark drying. So I'm going in there now to actually put them into a storage box. Now what I use is one of these bunker boxes. They're dark. The potatoes keep really well in them, I find. I do put a few holes in just for a little bit of air ventilation, but once the potatoes are dry, they're pretty good in there. So the film that I took in there when I put the potatoes in was pretty bad, so today I've got a different camera in there, and hopefully that's going to give you a better view of what the potatoes look like when they're drying. But they are now dry, so we'll go in and see what we've got. So coming in here, you can see that the potatoes have dried nicely, and as long as this video is coming out well, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I can now put them into the box and know that they're going to keep quite well. Any that have had damages will show some moisture, and so that sort of reveals that if we missed any in the early stage, while I did try and filter them out, that it's a second check. So simply packing those in now. You could rub off some of the excess soil if you wanted to. Some actually falls off onto here, but I don't worry too much. These are not going to be stored for any great length of time, because we will eat these fairly quickly, and then there'll be another lot coming out of the garden, because as I said, I'm leaving in the soil where they actually store better this time of the year anyway. So out here in better light you can perhaps see what they really look like. They're now nice and dry. The mud's all dry. Yes, it's going to have to be washed off in the kitchen, but they will still keep a lot better than if they were wet. Now if you were keeping them for a long period and they start to shoot, it helps to actually go through them now and again and actually rub those shoots off, because the shoots tend to pull a lot of moisture out and change the nature of the potato. But rubbing them off keeps the potato nice and firm. Hopefully that's given you some ideas as to how you can better deal with harvesting potatoes in winter when the ground is muddy.